He laughed while the cameras flashed, and the words that destroyed his wife echoed through the grand ballroom before anyone could stop him. Julian Vale lifted his glass with a cold smile and declared that his marriage had become useless because it could never give him a child to inherit his billion-dollar empire. Reporters rushed closer. Guests whispered without shame. His elegant black wife Zora stood frozen beneath the crystal lights, carrying a secret she had not yet opened, inside the envelope hidden in her purse. She looked into Julian's proud face and somehow knew that one of them had been living a dangerous lie. The ballroom exploded with applause from people eager for gossip instead of truth. Julian wrapped his arm around a glamorous young socialite named Celeste, smiling as photographers captured every cruel second. He announced that divorce papers had already been signed and wished Zora a peaceful future away from his family name. Nobody noticed that Zora never cried. She simply removed her wedding ring and placed it beside his untouched dinner plate. Her hands shook only once before she turned away. Every step toward the exit felt lighter than the one before, even though her heart broke with each breath. Outside, cold rain washed the city streets. Luxury cars lined the entrance while strangers stared, as if she had failed the world itself. Flashing cameras followed her until she entered a waiting taxi. Only after the doors closed did she finally open the sealed medical envelope. Her eyes moved across every line. Then she stopped breathing. The report carried Julian's name. It confirmed that years earlier, he had secretly been diagnosed with a permanent condition that made him unable to father children naturally. Every fertility test blaming Zora had been manipulated by a private physician paid to protect Julian's reputation. The truth had never belonged to her. The shame had. She closed her eyes as tears finally appeared. Not because she had lost her husband. Because he had stolen her dignity. If that betrayal already makes your heart ache, remember to like this story, subscribe for more unforgettable journeys, and tell everyone in the comments where you are watching from, as this remarkable path continues. The next morning, every newspaper celebrated Julian's decision to find a younger wife who could continue his family legacy. Nobody searched for Zora. She disappeared quietly. Months became years. The city forgot her face. But forgotten people often build the strongest futures. Far from luxury parties, Zora studied investment markets before sunrise and company reports long after midnight. She invested every settlement dollar into small businesses that powerful people ignored. She listened more than she spoke. She trusted numbers instead of promises. When struggling founders entered her office, she remembered her own broken heart and searched for courage inside them instead of perfection. Slowly, impossible dreams became profitable companies. Her investment firm grew without loud celebrations. Success followed patience. One rainy afternoon, she visited an exclusive wellness clinic after weeks of exhaustion. The waiting room remained almost empty except for one sharply dressed man reading financial papers beside the window. His name was Silas Rowan. Every business magazine described him as Julian's greatest rival. His shipping empire stretched across continents, while whispers connected him to dangerous people who protected his interests with frightening loyalty. Yet no crime had ever touched his name. Silas looked up. Their eyes met. Recognition appeared instantly. "You should have destroyed him years ago," he said quietly. Zora answered with calm dignity. "Destroying people never heals wounds." Silas smiled. "Building something greater does." That single conversation lasted only 15 minutes. It changed everything. Weeks later, Silas invited Zora to review an investment proposal involving clean transportation technology. She expected another businessman searching for profit alone. Instead, she found respect. Silas listened before speaking. He welcomed disagreement. He praised honesty. When meetings ended, he always thanked every employee personally. The kindness confused her. Slowly, friendship replaced caution. Business victories became shared celebrations. Late-night strategy sessions became quiet dinners overlooking city lights. Neither rushed toward romance. Both carried old scars. Silas never asked about children. He never questioned her worth. He simply admired her courage. Years passed. Love arrived without grand speeches. One autumn evening, he handed her a tiny wooden box. Inside rested no expensive diamond, only a handwritten note. "I choose your heart before your history." She accepted. Their wedding remained private. No cameras, no celebrities. Only family, loyal friends, and honest smiles. Months later, joy entered their home again. Doctors smiled warmly. Zora held a newborn son against her chest, while Silas whispered grateful tears into the child's tiny hair. They named him Kian. He filled every silent room with laughter. Silas never treated fatherhood like ownership. He treated it like a daily promise. Meanwhile, Julian's empire appeared stronger than ever. His marriage to Celeste dominated magazines. Yet no child arrived. Rumors spread. Investors quietly questioned the future of his company. Julian blamed stress, then timing, then fate, never himself. The calendar turned. Invitations reached every global corporation for the 2026 World Technology Summit. Julian planned to announce the largest merger in company history. He expected headlines praising his unstoppable dynasty. His limousine stopped outside the convention center. Crowds cheered. Television crews waited. Julian adjusted his expensive suit before entering with practiced confidence. Inside, enormous screens displayed names of keynote leaders. Then his smile disappeared. One name stood beside his own: Zora Rowan, co-chair, Horizon Global Holdings, his rival's company. The room buzzed with confusion. Doors opened slowly. Every conversation ended. Zora entered wearing a simple ivory suit that reflected quiet confidence instead of flashy wealth. She walked without fear. Executives stood. Journalists hurried closer. Julian stared as though seeing a ghost transformed into royalty. She looked healthier, stronger, peaceful. She had become everything he once believed impossible. When their eyes met across the hall, she offered only a polite nod before taking her place beside Silas. For the first time in years, Julian felt truly small. If this unforgettable journey reminds you that truth always finds its moment, subscribe, leave a like, and share in the comments which country you proudly call home, because the greatest surprise is still waiting. The summit began. Global leaders discussed innovation, clean energy, transportation, and future technology. Julian waited impatiently for his merger announcement. Instead, organizers invited Silas and Zora onto the stage first. Massive screens displayed breathtaking images of ports, hospitals, schools, and humanitarian supply routes funded through their partnership. Applause filled the hall. Investors leaned forward. Silas thanked thousands of employees before turning toward Zora. "This woman rebuilt more than companies," he said. "She rebuilt hope." The audience rose again. Julian forced a smile that never reached his eyes. Then Silas surprised everyone. "Our greatest investment isn't listed on any stock exchange." A side curtain opened. A young boy walked confidently across the stage holding his mother's hand. Kian smiled at the enormous audience without fear. The room softened instantly. Silas knelt beside him. "This is our son." Cheers erupted. Kian waved shyly. Julian felt something inside him collapse. The child carried bright eyes, warm laughter, and the confident posture Julian had always imagined in the heir he desperately wanted. Yet that dream stood beside another man. Not him. Reporters captured every expression crossing Julian's face. His breathing became uneven. Board members exchanged worried glances. Silas continued gently. "Everything we built will one day belong to people who value compassion more than pride." The audience applauded again. Then a reporter stood unexpectedly. "Mrs. Rowan, years ago your divorce became international news because you were publicly blamed for infertility. Would you like to comment today?" Silence covered the enormous hall. Every camera turned toward Zora. She looked at Julian, not with hatred, with sadness. She reached into a leather folder. Inside rested certified medical records. "I remained silent because dignity sometimes speaks louder than revenge," she began softly. But lies grow when truth hides forever. She handed copies to summit officials and independent journalists. The medical records prove that I was never infertile. Gasps echoed everywhere. She continued calmly. The condition belonged to my former husband. Medical reports were hidden to protect his public image, while my reputation was sacrificed. Julian jumped from his chair. That's a lie. Before security could move, one elderly physician entered from the front row. He had treated Julian years earlier. His voice trembled. I accepted money to remain silent. The confession shattered the room. Television broadcasts carried every word live across the world. Julian's lawyers rushed forward. His board members stepped back instead. Faces once filled with admiration now reflected disbelief. One director quietly removed his company badge. Another closed a laptop without speaking. Investors began leaving their seats to make urgent phone calls. Stock alerts flashed across countless phones. The empire Julian protected with deception started collapsing before lunchtime. Celeste quietly slipped out a side door without looking back. Julian reached toward Zora. I was afraid. She nodded slowly. I know. I loved you. You loved control. Tears filled his eyes. I can fix this. She shook her head. Truth isn't repaired after being buried. It simply rises. No anger colored her voice. That kindness hurt him more than any insult ever could. Outside the convention center, reporters flooded the streets. Markets reacted within minutes. Julian's merger collapsed. Board members announced an emergency review. Partners suspended negotiations. Years of arrogance finally demanded payment. Silas placed one reassuring hand on Zora's shoulder. Neither celebrated another person's fall. They simply walked forward together. Kian reached for both their hands. The little family disappeared into the afternoon sunlight, while photographers captured an image nobody expected. Not revenge. Freedom. Months later, Horizon Global became the world's leading logistics network, expanding because trust attracted partners faster than fear ever could. Schools, hospitals, and communities benefited from projects funded by their success. People spoke about Zora differently now. Not as the discarded wife. Not as the woman someone called Barren. They remembered her as the leader who transformed betrayal into compassion without surrendering her strength. Sometimes she still passed the restaurant where Julian first proposed years before. She never stopped. She simply smiled gently and continued walking toward tomorrow. She finally understood that real legacy was never measured by bloodlines, fortunes, or family names. It was measured by truth, carried with courage, love protected with loyalty, and dignity kept when everything else was taken away. If Zora's journey touched your heart, subscribe for more unforgettable stories. Leave a like to support this channel and share in the comments where you are watching from, because your own greatest chapter may begin the moment you refuse to let someone else write your ending.